One job. One job. All right. Trying again with audio this time. For those of you joined online, welcome. We now probably have audio. We think we have audio. But this is something we've been doing for a few years. We are at the MMS conference here in Fort Lauderdale. And I was just giving a rant a little while ago on the history of this and how much we value the community around Config Manager and much, much more. Now, are you remotely ready?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So this is what the studio side of the things look like. This is how we control the live stream. This is how we can invite different folks, up to 10 people at the same time. But it allows us to very easily change and manipulate the screen that goes live. And yeah.
So I fortunately had the time to come across a few new things from the last week. As you can imagine, we've been a little busy this week, and so much of the community is here. And we're so thankful that everybody was able to be. But for those that weren't, some of the updates that I came across online. This first one, real quick, is just a small one. I'm not sure how much it actually affects everybody, but Jason Sandys mentioned that searching for Microsoft Store apps in Intune is no longer restricted based on app age ratings. So if that was something that was biting you in the past, know that that has been changed. You may have noticed earlier this week as well, the update for the latest service release for Intune came out October 2024. And the other thing I forgot to do was install Zoomit on this laptop, but that's why we have Zoom in the browser. So pretty light update this month. I think we're all hoping that we'll get a little bit larger one for Ignite next month, but I've been trying to pick people's brains this week to see if we could get any rumors out of anyone, but so far not successful. We did notice that Intune inventory was delayed, until next month now? Originally supposed to be coming out this month.
Yeah, it was delayed for some reason.
Yep. So we don't know why, but that was announced earlier this week.
Maybe they won't announce it at Ignite. You never know.
That's a possibility. Also came across two more community things here. Nicholas Alberg has a solution around printers and basically how we can move printers and manage printers a little bit easier on the Intune side of things. Most of us that have managed printers in the past have managed them probably through AD if you haven't moved to a cloud solution already. So Nicholas put together a solution that he's had for maybe a year and a half, 2 years now, provided an update to this. Definitely recommend you checking it out. We've had several folks bring it up and we've discussed it on a number of our courses. So anytime we get updates here, just fantastic stuff. And last but not least, this was new and shiny today. The PSAppDeployToolkit version 4 is going to be released, and there was a number of updates that are coming along with it. So I'll just hit the highlights here. I'll let everybody else go ahead and go to the blog post to get the details, but the PowerShell module's code signed. There is still backwards compatibility with PSADT 3. The interface, there's a new Fluent interface, which actually looks really good. I like it a lot. And PowerShell 7 support and ARM support are some of the big ones coming out of this release. So again, this was announced earlier today. Patch My PC actually here at the conference this week too. So great time for them to announce this, and Dan with PSADT. It's looking like some really good stuff coming out of that solution.
It's like a coincidence that they were here and doing the announcement.
A little bit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't they also announce that they're doing enterprise support with the latest, or with PSADT as well?
Oh yeah, you can buy support if you want to. Yeah, still open source, but you have the option to,
yes, you
to
can
get
still
support.
you can still do the open source deal, but enterprise support for the people that need that to be able to implement.
Yeah, sometimes it's all it takes to get the community solution in the door.
Yeah.
To say that, all right, we'll support it. Beautiful. Yeah.
All right. So those were the things I had for today.
Beautiful. So Adam, since you are here representing Intune.training and many other things, what have you been up to lately on that channel?
Well, so if you've tried to watch anything recently, you've noticed that we're kind of lacking on getting content out. It's mostly because life is happening, but in a good way. I've got 3 kids that are doing stuff, and we're just doing family things a lot. But about a year ago, Steve and I launched a reboot of the channel. So we've been doing it for about 5 years now, and we knew a lot of the content was getting stale, and so we kind of put together a concerted effort to re-release, like recover all the topics. So getting started with Intune and working from there. I think we've probably got about a dozen videos in the can at this point for that. And as soon as we get more time, we'll get back into that. But we're still, we've got a lot of feedback from the conference, and we're still getting regular requests and comments on the channel for different topics. And so we're getting there as much as we can. But as you guys know, life has its ways.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what you're saying, there is a possibility that during the cold months there might be some content to dive into, and if that wouldn't be the case, there are still a few hours of already recorded content. I believe you shared some metrics, I remember last year.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've exhausted the pool of videos sitting on the shelf at this point, so I think everything's released that we have. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can squeeze in some more, or even do some marathon days. As you may know, so Steve's in Australia, and I'm in Houston, and our time zones are kind of fun, and so we have Friday date nights. It's his Saturday, so and so yeah, we're trying to work it out, trying to see what we can make happen next. But we still are committed to trying to keep getting content out. But also, you guys are making it easier for us to maybe not, because you guys are covering a lot of good stuff too. So.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. But say that someone would sit down and watch your YouTube channel from like day 1 until now. How many months will it take to get through?
Oh, yeah. Right. So I think I'd have to double check, but it was several years. Or sorry, it's several years worth of watched hours of content that we've seen at this point. Yeah, the metrics are nuts. We've had like over 2 million views and 40,000 plus subscribers, and yeah, it's a lot. I think we've had almost 200 videos now, hour long each-ish. It's a lot.
Yep. Keep us busy for the weekend. Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
And what's really funny is our very first video was released like 2019, 2020, intro to Intune, and it's still one of our top videos, and we even have links on it, like go to the new one and stuff, and it still shows up at the top search results. And
still watch it.
So we just leave it up.
All right, fair and square. All right, thank you, sir. But we are available if you guys have any questions, any topic, let us know. We will try our best to answer it.
I do see Jim O'Neill, who's with us here at the conference, but I don't see him in the room. We did encourage him to pop in and say hello, and so he did. So hello,
he's lurking
Jim.
in the chat somewhere.
He is
Yeah.
at another beer session, but also in office hours.
There you go.
That's multitasking right there.
So any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Any topic at all? All the way in the back. Our runner is on the way.
Yes.
So what's the best solution currently to get a lot of firewall rules into Intune today?
What's the best way of getting a lot of firewall rules into Intune today?
I have actually not checked if that can be scripted. I have just painfully clicked through the very long wizard every time I needed to create one. I like to say that can be exported and imported out using the IntuneManagement tool set.
I suspect so.
That's a tool we have showcased like 1 million times it feels like it's not true, but if let's go over to this one here. Yeah, I need to make some magic going on here. I need to share I'm gonna have to share the screen in the screen. Give me a second. This is
a little different than when we're just at our respective houses.
a little bit, yes.
Can I do that question? Are you using... Hold on, let me get to the mic. Endpoint Security Blade 4.
Are you using the Endpoint Security Blade 4 Windows, the firewall rules going forward now?
So the follow-up question, are we using the Endpoint Security Blade for firewall rules? I've been focusing on that a lot. I've had a lot of good luck with it. There are probably plenty of others here at the conference that may say just stick with settings catalog and that sort of thing, but I've had a lot of luck with that.
I was thinking, we just did the process using that for it, but for that, the IntuneManagement process does not have the ability to export and import.
The firewall specifically, okay.
So they did a redesign on it to move it to the settings catalog or to the V2, whatever the name of it. There's a V2 backend. So when they did that redesign, they changed the UI and everything, and I sent them a nice screenshot of all the things I would like to see fixed in the UI. But I think to Johan's point, I think probably the easiest way is going to be doing like build a rule out, then export it using graph, and then make new rules, and then do a graph import to create new. And Matt Call was here. He probably would have been able to answer that for us.
Probably.
Yeah, so for those of you who haven't seen the tool, Michael Carlson wrote it back in the days.
Switch over real quick.
Oh yeah, I can switch over and maybe
Be a little bit better.
see if it shows better.
I think it will.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't want to upgrade right now, but so this is a tool that you connect to your tenant, and pretty much everything, or most things at least, that you can configure in your tenant, anything from policies to scripts to whatever it might be, like my settings catalog things here, I can easily export from one tenant and into another. Duplicate, I can do documentation on my entire platform from this tool set. We usually showcase PowerShell scripts. I'm trying to find the list here at the moment. I'm blind, but it's only on the eyes. So it's here, scripts, PowerShell. I mean, you probably have seen this, but if you go into any given Intune tenant and you create like a platform script, so not remediation, because then you can actually see in the tenant, but I have a script here that failed miserably for me 32 times. Or 32 devices. But if I go to scripts here, you can see I have a bunch of scripts. But if I click the KMS activation script, for example, even if I go to properties, and here's the failures, by the way, I have no idea what this is. I can only see that once upon a time, sure enough, it was named this, but it's failing for me. I cannot see what the script does. I have to trust the name of it. But using Michael's tool, this one here, I can actually select the script and go to a view mode, and I can go to edit, and it will take me to the content of the script. So you can probably see what this script failed. Hint, it's on line number 1. Kind of forgot the hashtag there. There is no command called KMS activation script that I know of in PowerShell. But this one actually allows me to go in and change it and save it. Would be awesome to have this in the Intune GUI, but there isn't. It's only for remediations. But with this healthy tool set, you can do it. But either just documenting stuff, changing between lab and production, fantastic tool set. Saved so many hours. So if you haven't played around with it, great tool set. All right, any other questions?
Well, to play off of that, right? So that was an easy one. But let's just say that for some odd reason, the script did fail on 30 devices. How do we get that information out of Intune?
So basically, how do we troubleshoot stuff that we have in Intune? Maybe not just script, but similar things like applications in general. My recommendation or our recommendation here is simply do a lot of logging. Use wrappers for your installations or app installations and whatnot. It doesn't have to be PSADT, but PSADT does work with Intune applications as well. But at least you get some sort of logging. We have customers, they create a folder inside program data. They call it the company name. And for everything they ever install on their device, there will be a log file there for each of those components. That's where you go for troubleshooting. Because the IME log files, they have details about what's being downloaded, what's being executed, etc. But they usually don't help troubleshooting the app install itself. You have to provide that logging. I have a favorite example, 2Pint that I work for, or at least part-time work for. I have 2 homes these days. I fill my hours, put it that way. We have an agent that we install. It's an MSI. So we have one wrapper script for launching the MSI and everything around it. But then because it's an MSI, I can get verbose logging from the MSI installer itself to get much more information. So we actually generate 2 log files for each deployment of that one. So logging. And there are so many logging modules available out there that you can borrow from and add into your scripts.
Johan, one tip is kind of to your point on, so we've started all of our app logs and things, all of our custom logs, we dump them into the IntuneManagement extensions logs folder, which is where IntuneManagement extension puts its logs. And if you've ever done the collect logs from the Intune portal, it grabs all the logs out of IntuneManagement extension logs folder, which means any logs you put in there, you can bring back from the portal. And so you can reach out and grab all your custom logs without having to go to the device directly and stuff. So as far as I know, like it works. Nobody said don't do that, so it works.
Yeah. No, I've just used this one. It will upload the log file and you can download it from there. And usually doesn't take too long time these days. Early in Intune's career, hours and hours to get the stuff, but now it's much, much quicker. And that's, we just came back from, well, not I did at least, it was back in the Workplace Ninja conference in Switzerland a month ago. And one of the promises from the Intune team that were there, Brett Flagg and the other engineers, basically what they are working on for the next year or 2 years here, performance, reliability, monitoring. They don't want to have you guys call in about an issue they should already know that was an issue. And that's been a sort of a Achilles heel for the last first years of Intune here. But also making sure that the performance is the same. If you do an operation on a Monday morning at 8, it should have the same performance on a Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. So they are working heavily on basically scaling up, making it faster, quicker, because that's one of the most common complaints. Like, I used to have config manager like super quick. Yeah, Intune is slower by nature. It's a shared service. If you had a server that had 60 million endpoints on it, it would be a tad sluggish too, guarantee you. But that's what they have. That's what they deal with across Lord knows how many Azure regions, but it's a ton of them.
What is that tool, the console that you opened up?
The IntuneManagement tool.
Yes.
I can show you the link for it when I find it. Might have closed it actually. Well, me and my friend Google will do something here.
And we'll make sure too, we always, any of the links and stuff that we share, we end up posting on YouTube after, usually within the next 24 hours, they end up underneath the live stream. So we'll make sure that this gets posted as well.
Yeah, so this was the tools that I showed earlier, IntuneManagement. So if you search for Mickey K and IntuneManagement, you'll find it.
Are you aware of any community tool or hidden Intune feature where it's kind of like RSOP for the device? I know you can get very unreadable like XML file from a machine saying these are all the settings, but knowing where all those settings are coming from, which specific config profile, would be really helpful. Like, do you know anything that exists like that?
I wouldn't say RSOP, but there is a tool from Petri over in Finland called IntuneDeviceDetails or Intune Details. I have an older version available here, I think. All right, this is going to be fancy. Switched over to Swedish keyboard. Luckily, I have experience with that, so we should be good. I think there is a newer version out there, but long story short, this is a, whoops. Did not mean to do that. It's a very long PowerShell script, but it's a GUI-based PowerShell script. So it will connect to your tenant, and you can search for your devices. I have to pick something in the list first before I search. But I can search for devices that synced for the past 24 hours. And it will populate a list of devices. And I can pick one of these devices and generate a report. That will show me everything there is about that device. If you would have to click through Intune to find the equivalent information, you'll be clicking for a long time across 50, 60 different blades with information. But it runs PowerShell in the background, so if you want to learn Microsoft Graph, because this is using Microsoft Graph in the backend, it's a great learning tool. But it takes about a minute or so to generate data, but then we'll have a GUI with tons of details about the device. Fantastically useful. And here we go. Every single app, every single configuration, whether it was happy or maybe not so happy. To no one's surprise, my WinMerge setup failed. It was a demo I did where I purposely crippled the command line on WinMerge to simulate a failure, but the other ones I actually did install, but I have a few that is waiting for install. This one is available for install. And all the different policies and tons of information, BitLocker keys, whether it's encrypted or not, available in one single pane. So I find this extremely useful. Something you can give to help desk and say, hey, if you don't look up a device, use this one, because it will give you that, what do you call it, bird's eye, the high-level overview of everything. So that one I like a lot.
Does this or the Intune Manager script require some sort of special permissions to Graph, or?
So these tools that I showed, they are both using Graph,
right,
behind the scenes to get all the information. Yeah.
So the user you log in as does require whatever permissions whatever permissions you need to view the information that you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the viewer case, there is a role that you can leverage called security reader.
Yeah.
That has read access to pretty much everything there is in an Intune tenant.
Okay. So turn on global reader would do the basic same.
But they cannot change anything.
Right.
So.
Okay. So in your case, you're probably logged in as a admin right now.
Oh yeah, I'm logged in as an admin right now. But yeah, good stuff.
We did actually have a couple of questions here online too. First one that we have is from Sean over on YouTube. Is there a good way to import Chrome policies into Intune? When we try that, it imports as Edge. I've not come across where it did import as Edge, but I'm not typically dealing with Chrome either. Have you, Adam?
The question would be more, what do they mean by import policies?
Yeah.
Because if they're trying to use group policy analytics, that could be where they're having the issue. If they're doing a custom ADMX, don't, because Chrome's already in the settings catalog, except Chrome Update is not. So you technically
That's right.
do need to ingest that one still, if you care about doing Chrome updates. But I would clarify if he can respond,
Okay.
and see what he means by importing policies.
Yeah, so
Not
Sean,
seen that,
if you want to add in there, if you're still here, then we'll try to get some more info. We had another question here too. Where can we get the cool MMS Flamingo shirts that us and Adam are wearing? And
We can sell it to the highest bidder.
yeah, right. Auction it off to charity.
They're selling them for $10 out at the table.
There we go.
I may raffle mine off as game worn jerseys.
Love it. There's another comment in here as well, just on the Intune management tool. Works great for importing policies. Use it to import Kenneth's suggested Intune update ring policies. Absolutely. I mean, I think you were using that for one of the things you talk about often before we had that tool, creating a whole bunch of CIS benchmarks by hand.
Good Lord, yeah.
And then having to do it again.
Yeah, that was a fun project. Back in 2021, I was asked by a customer to implement CIS benchmarks in Intune. And that was before CIS benchmark had Intune policies. We had basically converted 410 group policies over to Intune. And I kept them just because it was fun. It's fun now to talk about it, but
Not so much at the time.
no, it was just all these different benchmarks policies. A lot of them were at the time custom policies. My only recommendation there is don't. If you find a setting in the settings catalog, use that one. Only go back to stuff like this if you don't have a choice. Like there will be new settings now coming out for 24H2. They will be available right away as custom policies. It may take a little while before they show up in the settings catalog, but it's so easy to fat finger these guys. Some of them you have to provide an obscure 7-line XML string, and it has to be formatted perfectly. And have to be special characters that you cannot even type on a keyboard. You have to copy and paste them into something else and paste them back. Good Lord, no. Use the settings catalog for stuff. But at the time, it took us 5 weeks to create these policies and test them. And then I was looking forward to repeat that in production. That's why I started to look around for there must be a way. And sure enough, stumbled across PowerShell, stumbled across the IntuneManagement tool from Michael. Was very happy when I found that one.
So so I noticed when you had your policies open, you've got a lot of the device restrictions policies and other not settings catalog ones. So you probably have talked about this on your office hours, but I was in Peter and Tim's session on Monday, and they mentioned a tech community post that came out talking about the back-end migration, where they're going to be converting all these legacy policy types to settings catalog on the back end, and what actions, if any, you might need to take for those. I'll have to find the link and maybe.
No, it's beautiful because, I mean, the settings catalog, it's really hard to fat finger a drop-down list. May you do the wrong selection, yeah, but that's pretty much it. All right. Any other questions waiting for us?
We did have a follow-up from Sean. It was group policy analytics to import on-prem GPOs. So your recommendation, Adam, unless you need to deal with Chrome updates, just use the settings catalog.
Yeah, but sort of, so my recommendation there was if he was importing the full ADMX in the custom ADMX. So this is where he's using group policy analytics to import an existing Chrome GPO and then trying to have it create a settings catalog policy for him. And it sounds like it's creating it as Edge instead of as Chrome. That's strange. That sounds like a bug. honestly.
I agree. I mean, I get the idea. It's kind of helpful to know in how deep waters you are in terms of what you have on premises today and you're going to Intune. But usually you have to do such an overhaul anyway. This is like your chance to get rid of 24-year of legacy, moving into a platform that's hopefully going to be a good few decades before we have to change anything again. But just because you have a group policy today doesn't necessarily mean it's a fantastic idea to bring it over to Intune.
Or this is his sign to just move to Edge.
Yeah, exactly. That will work too. But it comes back to a lot of policies that you will find in environments that's been around since 2000 is lockdown policies. They were there in a time where users were admins on devices. They were there to prevent someone from doing something incredibly stupid. That no longer apply. Fewer users are admin these days than they were 20 years ago. And they are much more mature in terms of using computers as well. They are no strangers to open up a phone and buy an app or two or install an app or three. So you probably don't need many of those policies. So overhaul it is. It's going to take a long time. I know companies been struggling with this for a year. Others just a few months, which I consider is pretty quick to migrate policies over. I know you've done at least part of that journey, right?
Oh yeah, I would say that, I mean, we took pride in how well our GPOs were, managed, and we used change control on them and everything, and it still took us probably a couple of years really to, slowly, incrementally import, and part of it was, I think part of it was just catching, like the platform was catching up to us, so like group policy analytics was sort of working, but settings catalog wasn't out yet, and so it made it more difficult, and we were still having to manually do things. But yeah, it took a long time. But I mean, to your point, it's like, man, it's an opportunity to clean up the sins of the past and say, why in the world did we do these things? I think the only stuff that we kind of said, fine, we'll just import as is, was our IE policies, because we still had legacy Win10 boxes that were moving to Intune, turning off the GPOs, and we know that there's just some weird stuff in our environment related to IE mode and stuff, and we didn't want to take on that headache. So we just said, great, all the IE policies get to stay as is. We'll put those in Intune, but everything else we looked at, every policy. Why did we do this? What are we doing? And we're actually going back through now because it's time to re-baseline. We've got 20H4 or 24H, whatever it is, the new release of 24H2 coming out. And there's baselines, and we want to bring in those baselines. And so now's our time to kind of redocument our deltas. What settings do we have that differ from Microsoft's baselines? And actually, to the baseline point, your story was, I like your story, but like we were dealing with the baselines as well. Hello, everybody. So Intune's baselines, I think, if you've messed with them before, you immediately turn them back off, largely because they're difficult. They cause policy conflicts and other things sometimes, in many cases. And I'm still waiting for that to improve, but it is what it is at this point. So we take Microsoft security baselines, they're ADMX sample templates, and we import them into group policy analytics, and then we import those into settings catalog, and we set that as our template, and do not delete, do not edit, and then we copy that. And then that becomes our base for our new policy that we then deploy to production. And so then we do our deltas based on that as our baseline. And it's a great shortcut to getting getting your baselines in, especially if you're just starting and you're trying to, where do I start with Intune? Go do that first. Go get your baseline set. It's a great, easy way, and it lets you learn things as you go. So you're working through the spreadsheet, you're evaluating the things, you're starting to kind of look through, like, how are you going to document this? How are you going to keep track of your deltas? Who's going to be able to edit this stuff? How do you break out your deltas? So I think it's a great place to start if you're just starting out on the Intune path, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great tip.
Any questions from the room here? over there.
I don't actually have a question. I just had a comment back to something that Adam told me at MMS last year of like, why are you overcomplicating it? This is your opportunity to just kind of burn everything to the ground and move over. Your management doesn't know what the capabilities are, so as long as you're making your InfoSec team happy, it's good.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Haley.
Thanks, Ian.
Did I say that? All right, Andrew, back to you.
Which one? Oh, okay. No, it wasn't. So there's a question here in the chat. Working on setting up OSD for Windows 11 24H2 and have uninstalled the new Outlook app and have customized the taskbar. Whenever a new user logs on, a download icon for new Outlook appears. Tried finding where it's being generated with no luck thus far. Any thoughts on where to check to keep it from being auto-generated in the future?
That one I have not tried yet to get rid of.
Is that the one where you have Outlook Teams?
With Teams? Yeah.
Is that the one when you have Outlook Classic and Outlook or new Outlook, you have two icons? I think they're pointing to the same executable. Because we started getting tickets for that because it's confusing for users. You know, what do I do? I have new Outlook and Outlook Classic. What do I click on?
So there's a settings catalog setting that you can deploy that prevents the new Outlook button from being available. And there's also on the M365 portal side of things, there's something, I don't know, but there's something you can configure there as well. And I think we've got a proactive remediation that we push to auto uninstall new Outlook, just period, until we're ready for people to start using it.
So the new Outlook is the provision batch, is it app packs or I think it comes with that bundle?
Because it's like replacing the native mail
It's a
app.
store app.
Yeah.
But what we have, it's not, it hasn't replaced anything. I think it's pointing to the same executable, but it added an extra shortcut. So when you click on the start button, you have Outlook Classic and Outlook New, I think. And users are getting confused. They're afraid to click on either one because they don't know what's going on. So they call the help desk. Help desk is freaking out. There's a bunch of tickets.
So I think that's actually the expected
Can you
behavior.
try to repeat the
Yeah, sorry. So so basically what you're saying is that whenever you're, so I think what happens is you've got regular Outlook and the user's got the toggle, it says try new Outlook. And when you click try new Outlook, it says, hang on, we're updating, it installs the app, it closes old Outlook, launches new Outlook. You go to the start menu, now you've got new Outlook, old Outlook icons in your start menu still. That's because old Outlook is still there, because the way, I guess the way to look at it is that you are allowing users to try before they buy, try out new Outlook, do I like it, do I want to roll back? Because you can simply go back and relaunch old Outlook, turn off the toggle, and it'll uninstall new Outlook and let you revert back. So I think my expectation is that it's designed to allow users to do a transition, and if they don't like it, they can come back. And so I think if you were to communicate that to your users as an educational, like, hey, this is available for you to try out, but if you don't like it, you can go back. And instead of it being oh my God, I don't know which one to launch. Does that make sense? That's the way I would approach it.
It does to a normal user, but 90% of the users, I'd rather delete the shortcut and not ask any questions because they're not going to read that they have a choice. They're still going to call the help desk, bunch of tickets.
So I think once I have time to get to it, I'm just going to delete the shortcut so they don't have an option.
So I would definitely recommend doing the settings catalog setting to disable the ability for them to toggle it unless you want them to use it. And if you want them to use it, then I would have a strategy for pushing new Outlook and removing old Outlook.
I mean, it might be doable to script away that shortcut somehow, but in general, if you're interested in removing stuff, techniques like this one here, where you remove stuff from your packages, from your images before you image devices, they only work well for the built-in components. This is something slightly different. than that. But this is something we see a lot of organizations doing. I stole this list from Mike Terrell here, it's on the front row, but basically this is stuff that we always remove because we consider them to be things that an enterprise really don't need much of. And not only does it make the deployment slightly faster, but it does a significant reduction of payload to the device after it has been deployed, because every single component in Windows, and there are a lot of them, they have updates coming down to them all the time in the background.
Why do they insist for years? I think with Windows 7, we started removing the AppX and the AppX bundles. We started removing during the build. I think it was with Windows 7. And ever since then, they keep insisting that enterprise needs to have Bing and weather and people and solitary.
Now, we see a lot of folks removing components before.
Everybody removes components. Why do they insist that we need those components?
Oh, by Microsoft. Yeah, I've actually asked one of the top geezers a while back in Redmond.
Top geezers.
One of the VPs, okay? And they were like, yeah, we heard the request. It's like, But I'm assuming a marketing department is involved somewhere. They should not be involved in decisions, but they apparently are. So we are not there yet. So we have to do some work to make it reduce the footprint, reduce the attack surface, reduce the amount of updates that come down. Because I've seen organizations even go in and block these updates just because they were frustrated over the amount of network traffic they generated. And I'm like, yeah, that solved the problem. We had one customer, it was an insurance company, a company I visited in the early Windows 10 days. Their network team got so mad of all the components being updated every other day, generated millions and millions of connections through their firewall, so they actually have to replace the external firewall after a while, but they came up with a clever solution. They just blocked the network traffic on the firewall. So no updates were coming down at all. And I like to see any one of you waltz into your security team and say, basically, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a great idea on how to reduce traffic here. We're going to patch half of Windows, this half. And then we're going to leave the other half unpatched. And we're going to bet our money that the attackers will not attack the part that we didn't patch. They will only try to attack the part that we did patch. What do you think? I don't think that will fly. No, I don't think. You have to patch all of Windows. And these days, it's not just Windows and Windows components. It's drivers. It's BIOS. It's all the darn apps that are on it also. It only takes that one component. There are BIOS versions out there with known risks, CVEs attached to them. There are drivers out there that have CVEs attached to them. Many of you in the room probably remember a feature that HP provided with their audio driver a while back. It contained a keylogger. Very handy if you forgot your bank account number. Not so handy from a security point of view. You have to patch it all.
Yeah, but to his point, I mean, that's why we purchased like Windows OS Enterprise, right? We don't want them, but it still comes.
Yeah, so the follow-up comment is like, why? Why it's an enterprise build, it's an education build. Why do we need all this unwanted stuff? I have no good answer. I'm with you 2,000%.
I will say that, so we've got, if you haven't looked in a while, people always will throw out like, why do they put Candy Crush in the enterprise? They haven't put Candy Crush in the enterprise in a while. And so depending on the SKU that you use and that you activate dictates some of the stuff that you get. And so the enterprise SKU is I mean, like, I don't know that we actually rip hardly anything out anymore. It is much, much cleaner than it ever has been in the past. But there's still potentially things that you're like, I don't really want this. So like Xbox is still in the SKU. But here's the thing. The other day, one of my guys said, hey, I want to do a screen recording. And he was going to use, and it needed the Xbox components in order to do a screen recording. It's like, okay, weird, but whatever. But also, like, if you want to do, I think HoloLens things, I believe that's, I think it also relies on some Xbox related stuff. So I think there's some legitimate, not making an excuse for them, but I think there's some legitimate cases where like we don't understand why it's there, but there's other components that are depending on that stuff that require it to be there. But then I think some of it is just marketing jerks that are just like, hey, let's bump our numbers. Because I mean, like he mentioned, I think I was on that same session with you yelling at the geezers about the, you know, why did we get Teams Home and the people icon, like Teams Home, like what? And
Right.
what, Dev Home, that new one, the Dev Home? What in the world?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, I mean, at least from our perspective, we're still fighting the fight on behalf of the community. We're still pushing hard with, you know, with whatever juice we've got.
I mean, and it's going to get more interesting. I mean, 24H2 is just out the door. What's going to happen next? Well, there are already AI features going to be rolled out. They're going to need updates. There's going to be components. There's going to be large downloads that we have to deal with. It'll be very interesting to see the next upcoming months. I saw a note just the other week that they are starting now for Copilot Plus certified PCs running, I think it was one special insider build or something. They will start to offer these updates. And they're going to be big as well.
Oh, yeah.
Local, like, machine learning is not small.
Yep. All right, got a question in the front.
It's kind of piggybacking off of that. I don't know if you guys ran into it, but when we were doing OSD and stuff, I think Rudy Ohms, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, he had made a blog post about a bug with the enterprise subscription activation. And so with that use case there with the blogware, or bloatware, whatever you want to call it, during that period, it was like, yeah, your computer's pro and it can't enterprise activate for like a period of 4 or 5 months before they came out with the recent patch. And so for us, it just put us into an interesting predicament where we were like, subscription activation. And then all of a sudden it didn't work for quite some time. And then we're like, well, crap, when we used to just put enterprise at the bench, then we didn't have to worry about that. And so it just posed an interesting scenario for us that we never thought we would be in.
Yeah, I mean, it took Microsoft the longest to fix the bugs around subscription-based activation. It was quite painful for organization having to deal with it. So I feel your pain on that one, for sure.
Yeah, but thanks, Rudy. I don't know what that guy does, but oh my Lord, I think all he's doing is just decompiling the next DLL, just working his way down the list.
I know what he doesn't do. He does not sleep. He cannot possibly sleep.
He can't possibly, right? Yeah. It's phenomenal. So thanks, Rudy.
Yep.
So there are just online, just to share, make sure we call everyone out here, that shared frustration there, I'll say. Dev Home, Windows backup, all that's being brought up. Akos did have a comment here on a reg key that I don't know if you want to actually pop it up on the stream. You know how you can show a chat window.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But
have the power invested in me. Let's see here.
There it is, right there.
That one.
There we go. So
beautiful.
Remove this key might help. So thank you, Akos, for posting that. And he did say similar for Dev Home as well. And we just had some other comments here in the chat. Hid the new Outlook toggle using a remediation script, so another way to do it there.
I have a total sidebar. Akos actually gave me a gift to give to you in Switzerland.
It's funny because he was actually asking how I enjoyed this gift. Here's the proof. Thank you, Akos. So I don't know how good it is yet, but it's a Toblerone, so I know it's going to be delicious. Thank you so much for this.
Took me a little bit too.
That's all right. That's all right. We know it's still delicious. And he did say cheers and enjoy the conference. So thank you so much for that.
Yep, that works. Beautiful.
Now there's a lot of witnesses that has made it here safely.
Yeah, recorded too.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. All right.
We did have another question in here too that I wanted to hit. Win32 Apps auto update and supersedence, is that working as expected? So they've had a lot of gaps removing versus updating criteria in supersedence. I would say in my experience, like pushing patch my PC updates, for example, have been fantastic through Intune. But I don't know if anybody else has had any challenges with the supersedence in Intune.
It's been working fairly well for me. Yeah, but something you will see if for example, patch my PC was mentioned. For those of you who haven't seen, they do have a publisher. I think I have it installed on one of my lab servers here. Where you can very easily select the apps you want to have created packages for or apps for in Intune, and also which applications to actually update automatically. And they have like an entire team working on creating good detection methods and requirement rules and all of that for those applications. Microsoft is starting to do something similar. If you go into a regular Intune tenant, where you have bought that service, the Enterprise App Catalog, and you add in applications, there's going to be a list option here in the bottom called the Enterprise App Catalog, this one here. And when you select that one and start to create or search for applications or whatever they are, 7-zip as good as any. They also take care of creating well-tested, requirement rules, etc. Because they can be really hard to figure out, and they usually have more than one. They usually have like 2, 3, 4 of them, just to make sure they really cover all scenarios a superseded app can fall into. So you can definitely use this for good inspiration as well to see what they create. The Patch My PC's scripts are fantastic. They're just incredibly hard to read because they make them small on purpose. Do you guys know why they were small on purpose?
We hit the limit of how many characters in the script.
Yeah, indeed. There was a time where even Intune itself just would refuse to download a policy if it became too big. Thankfully, those are being fixed or addressed, but it was like, all right, we need to keep them small and effective. So that's what they did. So they are that. They're just challenging to read if you try to figure out what they do. But heck, if you put your heart into it, there's a lot to be learned from that. I'm biased, but it's good stuff.
I mean, I tell everybody, like, there's no reason not to go with Bash by PC. They're phenomenal. So Andrew Jimenez works for Bash by PC, and he's got in his GitHub repo, I'm trying to find, I think it's under his toolbox or something. He's got a tool that you can run on a local device that will dump out, so it's PowerShell, MSI, ARP, no, that's not the right one. Get installed software info, and it will spit out all of the uninstall keys for all the installed apps on your device.
What's the name of the gentleman?
It's Andrew Jimenez.
Do you have that thing?
Yeah, he's reading it out of the registry, but it also is for things like executables that have a weird, different, like a non-MSI command line and stuff.
It's going to be in one of 2 files in the registries. Why is that an issue?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Which repo did you say?
That's his user ID.
Yeah.
Right there. It's under Toolbox or his miscellaneous tools or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, miscellaneous tools. Get installed software info.
Do you have it up there?
I'm about to.
Oh no, sorry. It's app basic detection script. Sorry, that's the different one.
Basic app detection script.
All right, let's see if I can switch over the screen to you, sir.
Because I think I'm still
I'm
sharing
getting
the right.
The script to create.
That's the one?
I think it's the second one, the script to create app detection script. So it's if you're going to create a custom detection in Intune, this will loop through and get all the installed apps and then let you generate a nice, well-formatted detection script so you can make a custom detection instead of, like, basically in cases where you can't use the MSI detection, or it's an MSI, but then it writes a different reg key type thing and stuff. So, so anyway, it came up in the other one
cool.
of the sessions earlier this week.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, any other questions?
Did you still have the chat up? We still also have some in there.
Oh, okay.
Is everybody having fun? Because I'm having fun. I like this. You guys do this every week?
Every week.
This might be more fun than me and Steve's sessions.
Well, at least we do it at 4:30 p.m.
Right.
10 p.m. on a Friday.
So here's a follow-up comment, it looked like. More on auto update and supersedence. Also need to keep assignment on the previous app in order to get better results. Could not see it mentioned anywhere. So if you're not doing it automatically through something like Patch My PC, maybe just some scripting. And to your point, Adam, having a consistent detection method, and I heard that in the back too, good detection methods, good install command line switches, good uninstalls. Those are going to be, if you have those intact, hopefully you'll be in much better shape.
Oh, and the other thing I was thinking about when you had the Patch My PC console open was for the updates. You can click on a scan button and it'll connect to your tenant, to your Intune tenant. It also do it on the config manager side, but it'll look at your installed apps and it will suggest all the updates that for apps that it knows are installed on your devices in your environment. And so it'll help curate a list of updates that you can push. So for example, we don't deploy Firefox on purpose, but people have Firefox installed. Well, if it's installed, we better be patching it.
Yeah,
so,
that's helpful. Yeah.
Or ripping it right off, one or the other. But it's nice to have a tool to kind of help you audit that and also bring it into compliance to at least keep it secure. Kind of back to your point about leaving, like blocking updates. It's like, well, that's kind of silly.
Yeah. All right. Don't think we had any more questions in queue.
I think Matt had one. Looks like Matt was joining us.
Oh, he wanted to learn about the home updater. I'm assuming from the same company.
Oh, yeah. Do you mean the home updater?
Released today? There you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
So funny how things come back to the roots again.
Yeah. But I think everything up to this point, we've been talking about like the enterprise publishing service.
Yes.
Not the home updater.
Yeah,
in this
that
case.
is true. Yeah.
Did you want to tackle that one too? One right above.
This one?
Yeah. So how can bandwidth issues be fixed for sites when the client uses DPs or even Intune?
I mean, the trick to pretty much all of this is for config manager content that there have been solutions around forever to do peering of content. Me and Mr. Terrell here, we just came out of a session on how to enable peering for imaging. Yes, because they're large packages. But even Intune content will absolutely use the library optimization, and so does the Windows Update component. The thing becomes more interesting, I think, when you are not optimizing it at all. So in scenarios where I spent the weekend just for the fun of it,
as you do,
as you do on weekends, if I can
In between being a horse dad.
that too. We have a small farm. We have horses, goats, chickens, and ducks. And when I get back from the conference on Thursday night, My wife and the boy is leaving for LA for 4 days, so I'm in charge of the full farm. So that's going to be a fun project. But I'll do my best. Produce a lot, those creatures.
Maybe I'll come help if you have some ice cold beer.
That will do. That will do.
Yes.
But long story short, on our blog, we post a lot. But I do post a blog post where I was deploying 25 machines, Windows 11 23 H2, just to see what happened. And I let them sit for 4 hours, did nothing with them. And during those 4 hours, these 25 devices downloaded 26 gig of content. That was not the bad part. The bad part was poor efficiency, and that the poor firewall had to deal with almost 70,000 connections for 25 devices. Wow. That's a lot of chatter. And this was on a fully patched image, like to the day. If it hadn't been patched, it'd been another half gigabyte of updates. But these are updates for the built-in components. And just by applying a few basic settings in Intune for DO, you can make it much better. So just by applying a single policy, settings catalog, mind you, we got a peering up to 89%. We got the download down to 11 instead of 26. We cut the TCP connections in half by a simple policy change. So if you're looking for stuff like that, we do have recommendations up for Intune. If you want to get better than that, you kind of have to use an agent that can detect your network. It happens to be what we do for a business or live in. But so you can have different settings on wired and Wi-Fi and VPNs, and it actually will detect when it's changing it and adapts the policy for it. But this is wicked much better than nothing.
So coming from a config manager environment, and if you're still on config manager with co-management, you can still ideally leverage the DO settings at that point from in the client settings and leverage the where the DO settings tell it which DP or which boundary group to pull content from, and helps you with all that. So how do you make the transition to Intune with no config manager and have your devices grouped correctly and things like that? Do you have any strategies on that?
I mean, unlike config manager, Intune, as most of you probably know, doesn't have the concept of networks and boundaries and boundary groups and all that. So you have to basically mimic something like that manually. That's why we do it. What we do, we know the networks everywhere and can apply the right settings because we see networks. We know where they are. We can see which ones that are good to talk to each other and the ones that don't. If you look at the network structure like this one on the screen right now, I can tell you that bundling these three and say to Intune that they are well connected, not a great idea at all. Because they will start to peer across every single WAN link, across every single device, type 500 locations, times 15,000 clients, and you're back to having a network that is not happy. But if you instead figure out that, all right, these 4 subnets in this site, they are well connected, I will give them one group ID, and these guys over here, they are well connected. I'll give them another group ID, and the third one over here with almost 3,000 devices, I give that the third group ID. So they will peer content to each other, but not, between each other.
Can you flip over to your screen on the stream? I missed it. You have it up here, but not on the stream.
I know a guy. But it's challenging when you have projectors and. But there is a lot you can do to make this better, for sure.
Thank you. Any more questions in the room? Yes, ma'am.
Now the hard questions are coming.
That's right.
Hey, I'm sorry, this is actually from my work life. Since you were talking about networking, my InfoSec team is very interested in creating host-based firewalls for Intune managed devices.
So, like, what do you have like an example?
They want firewalls between each host. Yeah, they want some network segmentation. Thank you. Yeah. So,
Okay, so your security folks they don't really like the concept of peering at all. Yeah, then peer-to-peer is going to be difficult.
Get new security people?
I mean, I am placating them because
Well, we had one customer
Endpoint.
we talked to that had a very elegant solution to the problem. They got rid of their 10 megabit WAN links and replaced it with 10 gigabit LAN links. Kind of removed the problem for getting content out there. Obviously, an extremely expensive solution, but it was like government related, so it was my tax money anyway. So
we have a.
So for the micro segmentation, right? It's part of zero trust. It's one of the pillars, right? Normally, everybody starts on the server side and then moves into the desktop side. For us desktop folks who love micro segmentation, it really becomes you're opening up very specific ports to very specific IP addresses between your hosts. In the virtual world, it's way easier to do than it is, I think, on the physicals.
I mean, I get the idea of being afraid for like lateral movement in between networks. I get that part, but at the same time, having, in this case, 3,500 PCs each reaching out to Microsoft to get content, instead of having a few of them getting the content and share it locally, content that is heavily protected and checksummed to make sure it hasn't been tampered with. I'm not personally very afraid of that part. There's so many other stuff going on, but yeah, to Haley's point here, it's if that's a case where you don't have any traffic allowed and all of this goes out the window and you cannot have any, don't bother out so much about peering policies. You may put in a few throttling policies because you're going to need it most likely.
And I would MCC doink.
Connected cache servers are obviously an option. You can set up today. You can set up distribution points that are dummy servers. It's going to be the best managed config managed environment in history because it won't have any clients. It's just a dumb config manager server with a checkbox for a connected cache selected. No boundaries, no nothing. You can just check it, and you can have Intune telling the clients where to go. Now, there are upcoming standalone cache servers, been in the making for years. If you look up the upcoming weeks, there was a session, was it early today or was it tomorrow? Andy Rivas and Carmen are here from that team at the conference. So if that session haven't been, go see it tomorrow. But they are, and they've been working this for a very long time to have connected cache servers that are not depending on config management, standalone containers. You run on any Windows or Linux client.
Well, and I don't pretend to be a security or networking person, but we've got to dabble in it a little bit. I would feel like moving to, or at least focusing on moving from hybrid to intra-only to put your devices in a more zero trust state would be a huge mitigating factor for a lot of the lateral movement concerns as well. I mean, right now, if you're domain joined, lateral movement's easy. When you're intra-only and you reduce your local admin footprint and you're using laps, you've closed a huge pile of holes there. I would go back and be like, well, we got to get to intra-only first before we worry about peer-to-peer. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Would they be interested in allowing just specific ports or?
I don't get a choice of any of this, I'm just doing it. I was just calling out, because we're talking about delivery optimization and having legacy infrastructure people who don't understand the cloud, like ways that this is heavily impacting your ability to compliant.
Yeah, great comment. Thank you.
So I have a specific question. Are there any customers that you guys know of that successfully did autopilot in a hybrid AD join?
Are there any customers that you're aware of that have successfully done autopilot with hybrid join?
They exist. I've seen them.
They're right here in this room.
Yeah. It is just a royal pain, unfortunately, the way it was designed. There is a reason when you go to the documentation, there is a big purple or pink, I guess, warning says don't do this. It's supported, but still don't do it. For those of you that are like new into the idea, I did put up a good collection of resources a while ago for it because I had to do it. And the most important resource is the first one, why you shouldn't. Read that one first. And then if you still need to, there are 7 resources on how to troubleshoot it, because that's what you will be doing.
Yeah.
It can be made better. There are community solutions out there that pulls in a lot of script and try to make the timing and sync better. But it's just one of those really, really hard scenarios to work with. I get that some organizations that don't have a choice, but there are other options to enroll devices. And please note that hybrid and autopilot is only bad if they happen to be in the same sentence. Hybrid on its own is brilliant. Nothing wrong with that to keep being in hybrid mode. Eventually, you probably will go over to Enter ID only, but that could be 1 year, it could be 8 years down the road. Active Directory is not going away. It's where the device is born. Having devices come online on your corporate network, join AD, and then just enroll them into Intune. Brilliant, super simple, one policy done. It's when you deploy them on Starbucks, that's where you have the problem. Very few Starbucks offices will have a direct line of sight to your domain controller. It's quite rare.
I hope so.
You never know. Make a good deal.
Yeah.
So we are trying a bit differently because we are currently looking for the same solution because unfortunately we don't have an option to go cloud only or cloud native because we still have a lot of group policies, user policies still in AD. So if we want to use autopilot in my specific environment, then my only option is to go with autopilot with a hybrid join. So one of the pieces we're trying to do is we created a custom VM, and within the custom VM, we added a Zero Trust always on VPN client. So what it does is it will give you uninterrupted access to all of your domain controller is something what we're trying, but we're not successful yet. So that's why I specifically asked the question, any cases that, it was successful.
All right, thank you.
You might want to spend more time trying to get to enter.
That's, yeah.
Than trying to get hybrid.
I think if you spent the time and effort you're spending to try to make hybrid autopilot work on getting your GPOs moved to Intune, you would have a much better success rate.
Yeah, it's not about moving GPOs in Intune. It's also about the limitations that we can make certain things like LDAP, right? And if I want to use my domain / my user account for some of the authentication, right? So those are not supported. So
Sure they are.
Can you try to rephrase that, Adam, or repeat it?
So he's saying he's LDAP and using domain credentials to.
Let's say I'm a bad developer, I incorporated some LDAP authentication within the code, right? So then I need to first fix that issue, correct?
sure. No. Unsure.
So I mean, I guess so you're in a difficult position. So one, I would say, so just don't do autopilot, as Johan suggested. Put your image on, and set the GPO to enroll it in Intune. Done. Don't bother with autopilot. That's just complicating things. Unless you have a reason, like you said, you need to go deploy at Starbucks. If you've got your devices in the office, just build them with your current OSD solution, and then just hybrid join them and get them into Intune with policy. And I know it's probably more complicated than that, but that would be a better approach than struggling through hybrid autopilot, only to probably get 6 months down the road and just be like, my God, why did we do this? But then, what's my other thought on that? So we're still going down the path of moving all of our Win 10 boxes to Win 11, and we're doing intra only as we go. We've got 9,000 devices, and we've run into one application where it was doing single sign-on, and it was probably an LDAP type scenario where it was failing because it couldn't use the intra credential on the box to auth to the app. They found a workaround for it, and we moved on. They just had to make local accounts in the app to get past it. Out of 900 applications that we've got packaged and deployed from Intune, we had one that had an impact like that out of everything. And so all of your auth should largely work unless you've got, maybe you've gone down this path and you've identified specific things. But the easiest way to get there is, so start dogfooding it. Build intra-only boxes for everybody that needs to be on that. Make your app developer start running on it. Make your app SMEs start running on intra-only. Deliver them VMs, W365 boxes, whatever, that are intra-only, and then start now, because it's going to be a while to get. It's going to take a long time to get there. You got to start sometime. So anyway, that's my soapbox on it. I don't want to drag everything out here.
Remote versus
So for me, we've got 50% laptops, and we've got always on VPN on those laptops. But we've got, probably at least 1,000 folks that are road warrior type people in that. So, we do have remote people, but all of our remote people came to the office to get devices. You can just OSD and ship, So anyway, Johan, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Yeah. First of all, we have a question over here, but just a comment on that one. We have machines that they cannot come to an office. I even seen organizations sending out VPN routers to locations just so that they can get going with their devices. Even small, tiny Meraki routers, or they send them to a conference center in that city, and they ask the salespeople to waltz into that conference center over a day, and they have someone that can help them there to get them enrolled. So there are options there. That's not very fun options to have to deal with, but hybrid is painful. If you put in a lot of work to it, you can definitely make it work, but it just, yeah. Yes, sir. Wait, yeah.
We have a ask. We open a new office in Australia. There is no physical network.
Yeah.
They're looking, so the management, I guess they've seen on the news Autopilot, and they know it's going to work. They think it's going to work. So they're asking us, well, do an Autopilot. But there's nothing in Intune yet. There's no security, there's nothing. So if they put in a AD connection to that office in Australia, and we do an Autopilot because there's no DP, there's no infrastructure. If they have a physical connection to the AD, doing the Autopilot hybrid, is it still a problem?
Well, it is less of a problem if the machine can see the domain controller already, because then you don't have to worry about that VPN client getting installed, and it has to be a VPN client that is not just any VPN client has been configured for device tunneling with security team. They just don't like it. So that part goes away and it becomes easier. But you still have the sync problem. The connector still needs to do their thing. Intune has to request the offline domain object through one connector. The other one has to sync eventually up. And you can still run into timing issues. But of course, it's much less of an issue.
But still an issue.
Could be, yeah. Could definitely be.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just even that, the offline domain join blob, we saw that taking at least 30 minutes when we were messing with hybrid, with hybrid autopilot, because your AD Connect agent that my domain admins run syncs every 30 minutes. And if you catch it at the beginning of that window, you've got to wait for the sync to occur, for the join to complete on the intra side, and then for the blob to then get synced over to the device to do its piece. Or I may have the order wrong, but conceptually the idea. And so, yeah, you could be literally sitting waiting for 30 minutes just for the blob, for offline join to occur. Not a great experience.
Yeah.
Or just send a request to your AD team, say, hey, do an AD details.
Every time you every time you autopilot a device, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, so to come with that, you have the script that you run, or that's get triggered basically, because yeah.
And there's a couple of comments online that are basically saying what we're talking about here in the room too. Matt, who Johan and I have worked with, has a
Matt,
knows someone that is doing autopilot hybrid, but they're doing it within the office. So the question there is, again, back to what you were saying earlier, Adam. Why not just do config manager then, right? You have config manager set up, maybe go that route. And Sean here adding, trying to spend 3 years trying to get it working smoothly. So unless you really need to, and again, there are cases that you may need to, it's just not worth doing.
I mean, it's so simple these days to get some sort of imaging going in-house. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just have to be enrolled, joined, done. The rest you can do through Intune. You just have to get there.
Yep.
Well, another what we do for Autopilot is we do Autopilot pre-vision at the OEM, right? So we order X machines. We say, here's the machine models we want. Apply these group tags to these machines. They do the Autopilot pre-provisioning. Then when we get the machine, we'll just do some site finish up, and then we offhand it to the user. Because since we're a bank, we don't have a lot of remote people, right? Everyone's pretty much kind of in-house.
Yeah, but from a reliability point of view, you can do cloud imaging today from a cloud management gateway. Stupidly reliable, simple, effective, and the device will end up being enrolled if you configure the sequence to do so. Can still achieve the same result, but with a solution that is more built for it. Whereas the hybrid autopilot is like an afterthought, like, oh darn, we need to support this.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like at this point, it's the question of, so what would you have done 5 years ago before this exists, or however long it's been? Like, if hybrid autopilot wasn't a thing, if autopilot wasn't a thing, what would you be doing for these devices? Just do that. Like, and then join them to Intune. I mean, that's the, if hybrid's the only, if it still needs to be hybrid, yeah, don't overcomplicate it with the autopilot piece of it. It just doesn't, I mean, we fought with it for a long time, and it just, man, as much as we wanted it to be a thing,
So this is just a clarification on a term that was just used a little bit ago, and I didn't bring my dog with me. So you guys said dog fooding, okay? And could you clarify what dog fooding is?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, so I mean, that's like an industry term. Microsoft does it. It comes from the phrase "eat your own dog food." Like if you're gonna feed it, I don't know. I guess it's like if you're gonna feed it to your dog, like would you eat it too, like or something like that? Like, would you be willing to eat the same food that you're feeding your dog? Like maybe not, and so maybe feed them better food. So same deal, when you're rolling out your technology, do you want all your clients, your people, dogs in this scenario, which you wouldn't actually call them that, but would you want them all to experience this thing, this terrible product that you've produced? So it's testing out your tech before your users touch it.
Yeah.
Did I
basically be your own customer. Like
Yes,
if you're
yeah.
selling something, be your own customer. That's what dog fooding is.
If I'm going to move my users to Autopilot with Entra join, then I'm going to do that to my device first.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Matt says hello, by the way, Adam.
So Matt lives in Houston, and he's part of the Hasbug user group. I finally got to meet him a couple months ago. So, hey, Matt.
Small world, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had another question in here too, and probably coming up on time, so maybe one of our last ones.
Yeah.
While implementing Intune with Autopilot for new devices only, would you recommend starting with Autopilot V2 from the start or the proven Autopilot V1? And are there any showstoppers with Autopilot V2?
I mean, it depends, right?
Yeah.
There are requirements to use the new device preparation stuff, and you have to be Windows 11.
Yes.
You still need to support Windows 10. You can't really use it.
And I think from someone I know, the comment I heard was basically, we wish they hadn't called it V2, because it's not really, I mean, I've looked at it and I'm like, why would I use this? It's a special use case scenario to use the new device provisioning stuff. And it's like, for most folks, I think keep using what you're using. The device preparation lets you do some cool things, but I don't know. I really personally struggled to find like, why would I use this right now? Maybe it's going to get more features added to it, but I think for right now, if you're just getting started, my personal preference would be to stay with V1 unless you see some things that V2 adds. Like, I mean, the dynamic or
it's slightly
the provisioning
quicker
group
to
stuff, is nice.
Yeah, but it's slightly quicker when you script against like creating the profiles and the policies. But other than that, I mean, the old deployment profile still works great.
Yeah, it does. We did a session on this just this morning, Michael Niehaus and I, and there are a couple of limitations there. It's almost like, to your point, Adam, like they're putting in the foundation for hopefully something greater. They're removing a lot of things out of the autopilot process itself and putting them into the IME agent, which may allow for improvements down the line. But today, if you're using your OEMs to import things into Autopilot, you can't do that with V2 today.
It's more like a foundation that is being built.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And I've also heard it described as Autopilot for small shops, Autopilot for shops that don't have OEMs that can register devices for them or that don't leverage that.
Yeah.
And so it makes it easier for those folks to get devices into the Autopilot service to be able to begin provisioning them. Instead of having to do the get Windows Autopilot info script, you can just import the device identifiers. And I think that reduces the barrier for some of the smaller shops as well. So I think that is a potential other target audience. But I like to think that it's building a foundation for some more stuff to come.
Yeah. And there was a follow-up question here. Wouldn't it be better for the end user experience? And I don't think, based on the session that we did this morning, I don't think that's really for us to say yes or no, because there are some things that really change with the user experience in V2. For example, if you're on Windows Pro and go through Windows Autopilot, the user names the device for you. They also get through a lot of these standard UBI questions, where do you want to, the advertising options and things like that. Those are in V2.
But there is a progress bar.
There is a progress bar, questionable on
accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. I love Michael's example this morning. Was basically, if you set your error timeout in V2 to 100 minutes, each minute that progress bar would go 1%, and then a minute would go by 2%. Like literally, that's how it's coded. So kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, those sorts of things may not matter to a smaller organization, like you mentioned, Adam. But they are there today. So for a lot of organizations, those things can really be a challenge. I don't typically want my users naming their devices. You know.
And I think ultimately it's all about making the right choice. Like, try them out, make the choice that works for your org. You know, like, we're speaking from the experience we have, but
yeah,
maybe you got a better, different way to do things.
Yep. All right. What do you think?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing us to try this and joining us for this live event. Wish you a best ending of the conference tomorrow, and you need to sneak up here and say hi also. Of course, one does not simply. There you go. That's the voice behind the scenes. But everyone, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.